rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah, I guess the bells are ringing. The bells are ringing, Billy Mack.
Hello there.
And, Varys was involved in some real major stuff at Dragonstone Castle, where the Targaryens were up to all kind of crazy stuff on the Iron Throne. And I really just couldn't believe how things happened last week that were completely out of character for Tyrion and Jon and the Queen. Of course, the Queen and Dany.
Wait, are you talking about that department I'm having run-ins with at work?
No, we're talking about Game of Thrones here on Rebel Force Radio. And that's right. You're listening to Rebel Force Radio for May 17th, 2017, with a couple of guys who've never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones.
No.
But we see you complaining online about it, and we wonder if there will be ramifications on the Star Wars universe from some of the guys who are responsible for the Game of Thrones thing happening on HBO recently. And, of course, Benioff and Weiss are going to be entering into the galaxy far, far away very soon. And I don't know, I thought their track record was really good coming into this season, but apparently people are bent out of shape about things that are happening on Game of Thrones. It's tough. It's tough when your favorite franchise is coming to an end. And I have to be honest with you, a lot of my opinions and feelings about the sequel trilogy twisted around a little bit when they announced that Episode 9 is the end of the Skywalker saga. So I get it. I get it. When it is all coming to an end, there's almost this desperation moment you start having. And big franchises don't end well. I can't think of a big franchise that had a series or a film franchise come to an end that was truly satisfying across the board.
What about the Bob Newhart show?
Okay, maybe the Bob Newhart show. But
where he woke up and he was on the old show?
I'm more or less talking about this era of nerd genre franchises that really require a lot of investment from their viewing audience, so much so that when they do get to the finish line, you want to have your audience feeling fulfilled with the story and feeling like they have been there from the beginning, the middle, and the end, and it all made sense along the way.
You know, I'm starting to reach the conclusion that perhaps the more intricate the story is, the harder it is to end it, right? Do you think so?
Well, maybe.
It just seems like it's so impossible for them to tie everything up in a satisfying way for people. Although I also there are some finales that I kind of like, but I think it has a lot to do with expectations, that people bring, and it's just there's almost no way around it. People think all their theories, all their storylines, all the little Easter eggs, everything's going to come together. Although I saw that Avengers movie the other day, I got to say, I felt pretty satisfied with that.
You like
I
that
thought
one,
that did a great job at bringing all those movies together. I mean, I didn't even know that was the mission of that movie. So I was really kind of pleasantly surprised to see how many other films were referenced in that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, this is true. And I think that is kind of on the shoulders of Episode 9 now to provide that for the Star Wars saga. So I hope, I feel very optimistic. I have my fingers crossed, and I think JJ and those guys will succeed. I really hope so. I really, really hope so. But let's just say that show that we do after the first viewing is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And I don't want it to be sugar-coated. I want it to be as real as possible because this is the end. This is what everything has been gearing towards for the last 4+ decades. And I've got a lot of investment into this story. So I, of course, want to see it end well. But we'll leave the nitpicking for the years to come. I think we'll break down and analyze the addition to the mythology first and foremost, just like we did with The Force Awakens, just like we did with The Last Jedi. And then when it comes to serious nitpicking, that will come in time, naturally, I'm sure. So
it's always the real test,
Yeah, but strap in. It's going to be a wild ride. The show this week, it promises to be a wild ride. We have no Swank, as you guys can tell. He is in New York City checking out all the latest Broadway has to offer. Living large in Manhattan is Jason Swank. So we want to carry on, though. Is Puppet Lando, can you kind of cough up a little Puppet Lando voice there? I don't know if it's possible. So. Can you do it without an audience? I was just worried that after Star Wars Celebration, you wouldn't do it without an audience.
Well, I do in my car, so I'm sure I could do it without.
But I didn't really want to do any Puppet Lando segments without Jason here this week.
Oh.
Because he loves it so much.
I know.
I mean, it really gets his blood flowing, It gets his heart pounding. I always think he's going to have like a brain aneurysm. He's laughing so hard. I know it's impossible to laugh yourself into having a brain aneurysm, but Jason would probably be the first to do it. So I thought it would be interesting if we could introduce virtual Swank this week. This is something revolutionary. This is something that's never been done before in podcasting. Virtual Swank, okay? So whenever you say anything sounding like Puppet Lando, I have a collection here of Swank laughs that I can fire off. So it's virtual Swank, right?
I see. Okay.
See, he loves the idea. He thinks that's a great idea. He can't get enough. He just is loving it. So it's like he's here. So let's go ahead and let's hear. You know what? I'm going all the way here. I'm going to get music to set the mood.
All right.
Because I know that we spoiled you greatly here in Chicago when we had our musical director with us on stage at Reggie's in Chicago.
Glenn,
we had Glenn Nelson with us.
That's right. Had the mood music.
Right.
Had a little piano.
So I think, I don't have a piano or anything right now at my disposal, but I do have some music I could play that would probably set the mood just right here if I just... There we go.
Oh.
All right, now let me make sure that... Okay, so we have the music, and do we have virtual Swank? That works. Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. These are real Billy Dee Williams tweets that you can find at Real BDW. That's at Real BDW on Twitter. That's Billy Dee Williams' official Twitter account. And Jason's so excited. He can't wait for us to get into it. So Puppet Lando now is going to bring us the latest in Billy Dee Williams tweets.
How you doing, everybody?
It's just doing great. I mean, it's so good to have you here with us, Puppet Lando.
Oh, you got a lot of guts coming here. Oh, you look absolutely beautiful. Let me. Hold on, Jason. Let me read you some of my tweets.
He's ready. Virtual Swank is ready for you.
When I'm sitting down with my morning paper and doing my Sudoku, I'll sometimes get online and
it sounded like Paul Bateman was jumping in. It's hard.
I'll do a few tweets. Let me read some for you. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the kind words and well wishes at Hamill himself.
Oh, this is a tweet. He's tweeting directly to Mark Hamill.
My old co-star, Luke Skywalker.
Hold on. All hell's breaking loose. Stop.
All right, now I got to get back in the mood.
All right, hold on. All hell broke loose there.
I was working pretty well there.
It was. Virtual Swank it's new technology. and it hasn't really been field tested that much yet. So
It was almost there. It felt like he was here.
It really did. It really did. So here we're going to jump back in here.
Where do you?
See, if it's starting to feel pretty good. I think Virtual Swank is feeling pretty good. Yeah, he's there. Okay, so we'll have to just remember to hit the right buttons this time. And let's get back into Billy Dee tweets.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you some of my tweets. Oh, well, you think that's funny. You're really going to like this one. This goes out to my old co-star. Thank you for the kind words and well wishes at Hamill himself. It takes cool to know COOOL, my friend.
He added an extra O. It sounded like Billy Dee Williams is so cool. Yeah, he's so cool when he uses the word cool. It has an extra O.
That's right. Well, when you're a galactic entrepreneur such as myself, these are the type of habits you tend to develop after a while. Here's another tweet. Everyone should have at Gunner in their life to keep them motivated at the gym. Oh, and it doesn't hurt to have the Four Tops playing in the background. And I think you know what I mean. Sugar pie,
depends
honey
on how many
bunch.
beers you've had.
What was that?
Well, that might... Well, Jason, that might have been the night before. You know. That's usually when I get together and have a few refreshments. When you smile, the whole world smiles back. And I put a little emoji there for you, Jason. Here's another one that goes out to Luke Skywalker. At Hamill himself, you should be used to getting everyone's knickers in a bunch. That's part of your charm, man. We got a pretty good relationship, me and Hamill himself.
Do you call him Hamill himself when?
Yeah, well, you know,
out? I mean,
in the social networking age, you know, sometimes we take on those handles. Here's one for at Real BDW May 4th. May the 4th rise, the force within us all. That sounded.
What is it? Why
Hey, you know, Jimmy Mack, that sounded like there were more than one Jason there. Oh, this is Attack of the Clones here.
It's a whole chorus of. It's a whole audience.
I think I'm starting to think that Lobot put something in my refreshment last night.
Wow, he's even like harmonizing with himself.
Yeah, it sounds like he's duplicating himself. All right, now here's one for my old director. At George. Oh no, # George Lucas. You are a significant part of my life.
All right, well, yeah. You certainly become a significant part of our lives here, Puppet Lando at Rebel Force Radio.
Well, I'm always glad to be here.
Well, we're always glad to have you. Even Jason, I mean, he just... I'm sure he would express his true feelings for you if he
He's
could...
a very expressive guy.
If he could ever stop laughing. He's having too much.
You know, this reminds me sitting in the cockpit of the Falcon trying to get some of those lines off, and we all just started laughing. And I was sitting next to the creature, my co-pilot. I think his name was Akbar or something. We had a picture to do.
And you did it, man.
You know.
It was absolutely...
Get through it all.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Puppet Lando, thank you so much for joining us.
Here.
It was an absolute pleasure to have you here with us this week. What do you think, Jason?
Depends on how many beers you've had.
Hey, I'm Ray Parker, play Darth Maul, and you're listening to Rebel Force Radio.
Rancho Obi-Wan is home to the world's largest Star Wars memorabilia collection, as recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. Become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan right now to get exclusive access to tours of Rancho Obi-Wan hosted by Steve Sansweet, invites to special events, and more. Plus, you can also make a difference and help Rancho Obi-Wan grow with a simple donation of $1 or higher. Visit RanchoObi-Wan.org now to get the latest news, become a member, or make a donation. RanchoObi-Wan.org.
Some pretty big news this week. Maybe not really big news, but more information on some of the big news that broke last week about the future for the Star Wars franchise. And we'll be digging into that a little bit this week with post-celebration Billy Mack.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had you on the show, I think, since we wrapped up those festivities. So, yeah.
Does it seem like it's been longer than a month?
No, it feels like it's been about a month. I still have a little bit of the StarWars.com live stream to make it through, so I'm not even done with that yet.
Well, you're way ahead of me.
Yeah, no, I promised myself to try to consume as much as I can that happened at that event because there was just no way to actually get to everything that was happening during those 5 days. One thing, though, that we didn't even try doing was trying to wait in that 4-hour line to get into the Celebration store for all their exclusives.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't wait because the online Celebration store went active this week, and I jumped right on some.
I haven't even really looked at all the... Did they have an exclusive figure? Seems like they always used to have a...
No, there was no Hasbro exclusive this time around.
Oh, that's too bad. That's kind of traditional, right? Did they stop doing that recently, or has that been a while?
I think the last few conventions have been without the exclusive action figure release. I'm pretty sure.
You remember the one that started it all, right? Well, at least for us.
Well, it would be George Sackle.
George Sackle, that's right.
Or George Sackle, as some people call him. George Sackle.
Yes.
Which is Lucas spelled backwards. So it was George Lucas
Kinda
in
like
an X-Wing pilot, flight suit.
And then there was a guy that we saw walking around dressed as that.
Oh, in Indianapolis, yeah. Oh, he was a dead ringer, too.
Yeah, he looked great.
He had the hair. And if there's anything that I could have that George Lucas has outside of his bank account, I'd want his hair.
Oh, it's magnificent.
He's got some great hair. Wow. By the way, happy birthday this week to George Lucas, who turned 75. I'm retired. Well, at age 75, it's time to live life the way you want to, I think. But, his contemporaries are still out there working. Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison. But, they're still out there working. But George, he wanted to step back from all that hustle and bustle and actually settle down and raise a family again.
I don't know about Coppola. Coppola's not still making movies, is he?
Oh, I don't think we've really...
He just does wine now and stuff.
Yeah, you're right. But he never made the grandiose "I'm retired" announcement. No. You never make the "I'm retired" announcement. You just don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. Why make it so final,
Mm-hmm.
But, George Lucas's case, he's up there on a pedestal, unlike even a guy like Francis Ford Coppola could understand from us ravenous fans who want answers from him and everything else. But so post-celebration, though, what did you think of the show on a whole?
Well, I think the thing I keep going back to is how much the experience of that convention has changed, I think, for all of us over the years. And I don't mean all of us as fans. I mean my circle specifically. Me, Jimmy, Jason, because it really has become focused on Rebel Force Radio, our friends.
More of a social aspect.
Yeah, which is way different from when we first. And I mean, I have wonderful memories of doing guerrilla style interviewing and running around with Jim and getting into every single panel, and we don't quite do that anymore. It's just the whole experience has evolved, and I enjoy that too. I'm kind of glad we're not running around as much, as fondly as I look back on those days. But it is nice to just kind of sit and talk about these movies and have a cigar and a glass of wine. And
as we look back at Celebration and the reveals and the panels and all of that, what did you walk out of there looking most forward to?
I would have to say The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I'm most looking forward to that.
Yeah, because to me that feels like it has more of its roots in traditional Star Wars that we know and love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and plus, too, they really showed us a lot. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, of course, I'm extremely excited for Episode 9, but, we got a 20-second trailer, really. It was a little bit longer than that, but there's not a ton of meat there, really. I don't think so. I mean, there was way more Mandalorian material.
I liked what I saw from some of the action, and the characters look compelling.
I just keep thinking about IG-88. Just going gangbusters. That quick clip of him.
Right. Now, that's not IG-88 specific, right?
No.
It's been revealed that droid is an assassin droid known as IG-11. 11.
Was that
probably
twin or what?
Probably cashing in on Stranger Things success. You want to call him 11. So
I see.
I don't. I find it highly unlikely that was the motivation.
Wait, how do you know that? How do you know that that's not IG-88?
Because I know things, and it was revealed that is IG-11.
Okay,
it's IG Millie Bobby Brown.
I see. Well, IG-88 ended up with what? With the Ugnaughts? Weren't they tossing the head around?
Okay.
Is that the end of IG-88?
Let me throw in some expanded universe lore now, okay? That was revealed that droid was actually IG-72. I am not making this up. You can Google IG-72.
Okay.
And that droid will be revealed.
I believe you.
As the droid. Because if you notice, that droid is more grayish, like a lighter gray in color, as opposed to that gunmetal gray that IG-88 is.
Yeah.
When you see that IG droid sitting in Cloud City.
Oh, that's right. It's just sitting on the floor there, leaning up against the wall.
But it's almost whitish in color, as opposed to IG-88, who is a darker gray.
Okay. I guess so. I always thought that was, Bespin dust or something.
Bespin? Somebody asked online somewhere, they said, why did Jimmy and Billy always call it Bespin as opposed to Bespin?
I call it Bespin.
So do I. I call it Bespin. I call it Cloud City more than anything.
Billy Dee Williams calls it Bespin.
So if you listen to the way that Lando says Bespin in...
Well, I guess...
Where do you get that from specifically?
Yeah, because I don't...
Well, the documentaries?
I got it from the video game Jedi. Shoot, I keep wanting to say Last Jedi.
Outcast?
Jedi Outcast, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Billy Dee does the voice in that, and there's a whole sequence that takes place on Bespin. And and you get to see Lando's ship, the Lady Luck.
Yes.
Which is kind of has a customized van type of feel to it. And well, it's like crushed velvet interior and everything. Yeah. Didn't I record some of that dialogue for you at one point? I think I did.
Oh, yeah. We featured that on a Billy Dee quote of the week a while ago. Jedi Outcast. That's a weird name for a video game. Jedi Outcast. Did you play that game?
I did, yeah. On GameCube. So that was quite a while ago.
What was that all about?
Kyle Katarn. He is the Jedi Outcast.
So
it was a really great game. I mean, it had a lot of original trilogy locations, places that look like the Death Star and stuff. And the thing I remember about the game is that you gradually learn the Force abilities as you go. So, you learn push and lightning and all this.
Right. It's like Dark Forces too. but this is part of that series, I believe, that all originated with Dark Forces. Kyle Katarn, Dark Forces.
Exactly. Yeah, I seem to remember that. Yeah, it was like a sequel to something that that wasn't on GameCube. So,
So you had the GameCube running through your home stereo, and you decided to record some of the Billy Dee lines from that video game. So here they are.
Gripe, I'm sorry, Kyle. What does it look like I'm doing? I'm sitting in a cell. What about you? Hey, I can be a charming guy when I want to. You two have had another one of your fights, haven't you? Well, come on, let's go. You can buy some flowers on Besman.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one. There you go.
You can clearly hear. He says,
that's all coming back to me because there's a thing on there where you could shut off all the sound effects and everything, and so I was able to isolate the voice. And it was that thing where he's like, "What does it look like I'm doing?" That was so funny because I always get a kick out of video games, like when you do things that you're not supposed to be doing, and the characters will sometimes say stuff to you, like "Stop looking there, you pervert," or something like that. I had a video game actually say that to me one time. So,
I actually had a video.
I did, yeah. Resident Evil.
It said, "Stop looking there,
you pervert." Yeah.
Oh,
but it's kind of like, I think you had a similar recording of Billy Dee for a slot machine or something.
Oh yeah.
So when you engage the character, if you shot at him or something like that, you can get a whole series of pretty funny audio where it's just like, him reacting to things like, "Hey, stop looking that way, Kyle. Ooh, you better get going." And you could just picture Billy Dee sitting there, recording this stuff. "I'm not really good at reading cue cards."
You can clearly hear, though. He does say Besman.
You can buy some flowers on Besman.
There you go.
Yeah, on Besman.
So he's a Besbian.
Here he says right here.
Besman.
All right, they're doing a little hot mixing on Billy Dee. Hey, let's hear the rest of these sound clips.
I don't believe it. It's not my fault. We're out of here.
Oh, there it is.
All right, say goodbye to this wretched hive of scum and villainy, and hello to Cloud City.
Oh, that's a great montage. Holy crap, is that funny? But yeah, so you can hear that clip get its proper Billy Dee quote of the week treatment at Rebel Force Radio on YouTube. And also you'll find those slot machine clips, all the Billy Dee quotes of the week eventually will end up at home on the RFR channel at YouTube. So check that out if you ever need your Billy Dee fix. It's a playlist, so you can hear them one after another. It's you can give yourself a Billy Dee quote of the week marathon. Awesomeness. Okay, Bill, one more thing. So you are a vintage guy. You're a vintage collector.
Yep.
You wear vintage clothing.
Pretty much.
Your hairstyle is vintage.
It is.
There's just a lot about you. Your underpants.
What vintage am I, by the way? What would you where would you put me?
Star Wars original generation vintage.
Indeed.
So the new Hasbro vintage action figure line hits store shelves this week. It's called the Retro Collection.
Yep.
All right. So they're exact replicas of the original vintage Star Wars action figures, 3 3/4 inch line. And it's a Target exclusive. You didn't happen to pick any up this week, did you?
No.
Are you planning on collecting these?
Undecided.
Oh.
Undecided. Not that I have a problem with the line. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to have the carded figures just for display or whatever.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to lay down and buy them. I find that as the years go on, as I accumulate stuff, I really have this conversation with myself every time I see something that appeals to me. And they do appeal to me. I mean, they're very cool. I haven't. Yeah, don't know yet. I'm gonna pick them up.
I want to see them for myself.
Did you see them in the display cabinets at the show?
I didn't.
At the Hasbro booth?
I did not spend
really?
much time looking at them. I looked at the weird Vaders that are multicolored.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Oh, it's supposed to represent some sort of factory test shot or something where they just, it doesn't matter to them what the color is, so they just use whatever's left over in the factory just to run the molds through a test run.
Wow, that's kind of deep, isn't it, for an official release?
I was thinking so.
It's like releasing a prototype. I don't know. I mean, I've seen figures they've done of like the Macquarie art.
Yes.
The concepts and stuff. But that's a little bit different. Yeah,
those are amazing.
Like action figure prototype carded.
Yeah,
that's unusual.
Yeah, really weird. A really weird choice. And it'll probably be hard as hell to find when it finally is released, much like this retro collection. So it's a Target exclusive, and I went searching for them a couple of times this week, which has been fun for me because I don't do those action figure runs like I used to religiously. Because, quite honestly, the stuff doesn't make it to the pegs. And when it does, you have these eBay hounds who are at the stores at 6 a.m. and stuff, and they're scoring the whole collection. Well, but I think they've put a restriction on how many you can buy at certain Targets. Some of them say you can only walk out there with one figure per person, which is like, well, but they're all different. There's a whole collection of like 6 different figures.
Yeah.
But you can only get one. So some Targets are enforcing that. This is the weirdest toy release of all time. Here's something else that's odd about it. A lot of Targets have been stocking these things in the men's department.
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
Like with the men's clothing?
Yes. Like by the wallets and accessories and stuff. And then, look, there's action figures. What the hell's going on here? I think they want to try to get the kids from the 70s and 80s who will be drawn to the nostalgia. But, I mean, if you're drawn to the nostalgia, you're probably already a collector to begin with. Yeah. So you know where in the damn Target to find the damn toys. In the toy department. Hello? So if you're out there on the hunt, going to your local Targets, check out that men's section. They're very weird. Well, could be Star Wars action figures.
For the executive in your life, it's right next to the ties.
Yeah, no, seriously. Well, that's not an over-exaggeration.
That's exactly what they're
all
going for, is that demographic. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Silly. And what else is silly is the fake wear and tear on the cards themselves. But again, I'm saying this without actually seeing a sample, holding a sample in my hands. I might love it when I actually finally get it. But when I see the photos online, they don't do much for me. So I'm keeping my eye open for those suckers. Anyone has a set that they want to sell, get a hold of me, because as fun as the toy runs are, I've already gone on 2 for these things, and I've struck out both times. So,
well, can't you order them?
I think there was a pre-order that I missed out on.
I saw something I just kind of came across it online of a guy that was opening what appeared to be a box that the whole thing came, but like the box was really cool.
Yes,
like it was a vintage style box.
It resembled the early bird.
Yes. Yeah, that was it.
That was something
Where'd you get
sent
that?
out. It was a PR thing only.
Oh.
And it was sent out to select websites who are shills for Hasbro Star Wars. We are not recognized as an official shill, so we don't get this stuff sent to us. It's a political game. I'm not going to play that stuff.
You got to get on the shill list.
No.
and it had the game.
I've been on shill lists in the past, my friend.
It had the game in it too, didn't it?
Okay, no.
With the Tarkin figure?
No,
was that in the box?
I don't think so. The box didn't look like it could hold more than the half dozen of action figures. Okay. Also, that Han Solo Stormtrooper on a vintage card is floating around out there. Another Target exclusive. So all of these are on my want list. So any of you Rebel Force Radio warriors out there who are hitting the toy aisles, if you can help a brother out, let me know. Show at rebelforceradio.com. But don't make any purchases on my behalf without checking in with me first, because I'm out there, in the trenches just like you guys are. So I might come across my particular bounty before you guys even hear this show. So check in with me. show at rebelforceradio.com. Collectors helping collectors, for sure. That's nice. That's very nice. So with Billy Mack here and no Swank, I like to go heavy on the voicemail and turn the show over to you guys because we do the show for you guys, and we're always very happy to hear what you think out there in podcast listening land. So we want to jump right into the voicemail here.
Oh, can I say something real quick?
No.
And I'm probably,
of course you can.
Probably
whatever you want. You're probably going to regret it. All right, let's hear what you think.
Yeah, I'm already regretting it. No.
Okay, I can't wait.
Not at all. I just want to say I had such a great time meeting so many listeners at the convention, and man, you guys, this show has some fantastic people listening to it, and I've never really experienced that. I mean, I've done a few things with you guys before, but nothing on this level. And when we were talking about the convention earlier and how things have kind of evolved and changed over the years, and my whole experience there, that was a huge factor. I was just kind of overwhelmed by all of it. It was great. So thank you to everybody who stopped and said hello, and I had such a great time and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
That's great, Bill. Awesome. I'm glad you had that warm and fuzzy experience there at the McCormick Place.
I just have to express gratitude. It's such an important thing, and so.
All right, well, let's jump right into the voicemail, and here's one from Luca in London. Take it away, Luca.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Bill. I am Luca from London, member of the RFR patron community. I really appreciate all the great content that is coming up on the RSS feed every week. And I was just calling to pose a question to you guys about these new episodes of the Clone Wars that will be released hopefully this year, although we don't have a release date yet. And just as far as what you would like to see from the series finale to tie it all up to Revenge of the Sith. I mean, we know that it's going to be the Siege of Mandalore. We know Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, and Darth Maul are going to be involved in that. But in your imagination, forgetting what we saw in the trailer, what would be your ideal way to wrap up the show to connect it to Revenge of the Sith? Love the show. Keep the great work. May the Force be with you, guys.
Well, that's a really good question. And we're in this sort of position where we have to kind of hold it up against the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars micro series, because that series to me did the best job of tying the threads together between the end of, well, essentially the end of episode 2 and then bridging over into episode 3, because it takes you right up to the beginning of episode 3. And that's something that I said last week on the show I would like to see the Clone Wars do. I would like to see it nice and tight and, vacuum sealed. So there's really no room for maneuvering.
How did they do that on that micro series? Where did that end?
Well, they had Palpatine was kidnapped. So they showed that happen because, as you know, at the beginning of episode 3, Palpatine's been kidnapped and he's being held captive. So they showed you how the Jedi let the Chancellor slip through their fingers and how he fell into the arms of the Separatists. And what was great about it is that you would get these little hints that Palpatine was orchestrating the whole situation. So it's definitely worthwhile to go back and watch those Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars episodes. You can find them on YouTube. It's pretty easy. I think some people have even stitched them all together so they flow like one just long animated film, which is sort of how I've always looked at that series. But when Lucasfilm then decided to take complete ownership of the Clone Wars and George became the top creative, then it evolved into the Clone Wars series, and Lucasfilm put the Genndy series on the shelf, essentially, or probably even a better way to put it would be they put it in the vault like Disney used to. But they put it in the vault where they house the holiday special. It has that status, the forgotten status. And you know what else used to be in that vault? Was the vintage Marvel Comics series run from 77 to 85. That was in that vault and forgotten about. But I think somebody has pulled that out of the vault because we're seeing Marvel Comics continue with issue 108, which continues the original vintage Marvel Comics run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
happening.
happening.
I didn't know that.
That's happening. And you know who the... all right.
I've let him loose. I've let him loose.
Bill saw it. He saw me get real excited about this because
straightening up in his chair.
Because I thought you knew about this. So
I did not.
I'm happy I can tell you about it. But so they're putting out this issue. It's coming out soon. Marvel 108.
Is it in the style of that? They're not going back to the simple.
Think so. I do not think that that's the case.
I mean, I say it's simple. We didn't really think it was then, but you look at it compared to the comics.
But maybe it is. I'm trying
now.
to. I have a link here to the Marvel website here, and do you
remember the final Marvel issue had it was like Star Wars. It was like in multicolored. The logo was like an orange and blue or something hideous. They're all standing there smiling.
I do. Yeah, I do. Now listen to how exciting this sounds, Bill. This comes out in just a couple of weeks, May 29th. Star Wars Marvel 108. A long time ago on a spinner rack, far, far away, Star Wars comics were a lot different than they are now, with wild and intricately plotted storylines. Marvel's historic original run introduced an array of unique heroes and villains to play alongside George Lucas's incredibly popular science fantasy characters.
Does that mean they're going to bring back some of those?
Okay, so they say
original comic characters.
Check it. They say this Legends era sequel to legendary comic book writer Archie Goodwin's Crimson Forever. Do you remember Crimson Forever?
No.
Okay, here's what made Crimson Forever a great vintage Marvel comic.
Was that the one with the cyborg? Do you remember that?
No. Slow down.
Okay.
Slow down. Marvel, it was issue number 50 of the original Marvel Comics line. So they celebrated that with a double issue, and it was written by Archie Goodwin, legendary comic book writer and newspaper strip writer and guy who had been involved with Star Wars comics quite a bit. I think, did Archie even, I think he was the editor? Was he the editor of the comics for a while? I don't remember. But Archie wrote this thing, The Crimson Forever, which was interesting because it was released between Empire and Return of the Jedi. And it featured a Han Solo flashback story about this disease people would get that turn their eyes red and stuff. And it was crazy. And so it was a multi-part thing in this book where flashback and then flash forward. And it was a big deal because I thought it was a big deal because the comic was available at newsstands where you wouldn't normally typically see comic books. It was outside the spinner, and it was more expensive than your normal comic too. But it was showing up in like supermarkets and places where I typically wouldn't find comic books as a kid.
Huh.
It was like a wider circulated comic book than usual.
Okay, but it was still
like an event.
It was the same format.
Yeah,
I mean, aesthetically, it was like another issue.
Yes. But that was a classic story, and so they're going to continue that story.
Oh, cool.
Legends era sequel. So that means it's strictly non-canon, right? But it would almost have to be.
Yeah.
Because here's the lineup. Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, 3PO, and R2 with Jackson.
Oh, they're bringing Jackson back.
Amazia Fox Train, Domina Tag, and Valance the Hunter in a galaxy-threatening, nostalgic roller coaster. Strap yourselves in. So, yes, the Hunter is back, the cyborg. That's the cyborg.
The Hunter, yeah.
Valance. One of the greatest issues of the original Marvel Comics run happened in Marvel number 29, which featured a showdown between Darth Vader and Valance the Hunter, who was a cyborg. And it's one of my all-time favorite comic book issues of anything.
And one of the great covers of all time. Do you remember?
Yeah, with Vader, and they're on the...
Got him in a chokehold. And
No, they're on a... Oh, I don't remember.
No, it's
maybe
like
you're right. Yeah. Hold on, I can pull it up here.
They're mid battle.
I'm gonna.
You can see the guy's bionics. And all that
yes,
stuff.
chokehold. Vader is holding him over this pier. That is, there's this acidic lava-like ocean. If the ocean can eat away at anything, then why is the pier made of wood? That's a good question for you. Hey, it was the 70s. Anything goes, man.
Sure.
But yeah, so in Valance the Hunter, the cyborg is blasting Vader, and Vader's got him in a chokehold with a saber raised over his head, and Dark Encounter is the name of the comic. And all of those Marvels have been designated as Legends era, which means non-canon anyway. So, but at least, like I said, they're not forgotten like they used to be. They're not put away into that holiday special vault. It was kind of refreshing to see in the Star Wars Celebration store here in Chicago last month that they had actual holiday special merch with the holiday special lunchbox, which I was able to purchase today because, as I said, the Star Wars Celebration store went online today for badge holders only.
Now, the main image on that box is Boba Fett with the pitchfork, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that was, you think that's pretty much done to tie in with the Mandalorian, right? Because the Mandalorian has
you might be onto something there, yeah. Yeah,
that's my guess, because they equipped him with that pitchfork,
right?
Although it's not Boba Fett, I guess, right? But
so now they're desperate to try to bring it back in the canon status somehow, but they got to bring back the whole holiday special. Legitimately speaking,
the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
We don't need the whole thing, do we?
Harvey Korman,
Jefferson Starship, and all that.
Art Carney. Yes, why not? Everyone keeps telling us it's
do you remember
a big
I came
universe.
over and I had that Jefferson Starship song on my phone and I was playing it for you and you just had this look on your face. What the hell is this? What is this? Wait, what? I know this song.
No. Now we're not going to hear it. That's if you keep talking about it.
Cue it up.
Yeah, well, when we work in an audio-based format and you start making reference to other audio, I feel compelled to then play that audio. And I am not going to subject our listening audience to the Jefferson Starship tune that they jammed on in the holiday special. But like I said, it's refreshing to see some of those holiday special elements coming back into play, just like with the original vintage Marvel run. So I'll be looking for that comic book hitting shelves on the 29th of this month. So, I didn't read this description. Amazia Foxtrain. Now, she was one of the 8 against Aduba, the Aduba 8. Remember them?
No.
8 against the world.
I don't.
It was actually Star Wars number 8. 8 against the world. And so it was sort of like this Magnificent Seven story with Han.
Yeah.
Jackson was part of that crew.
That kind of has a Guardians vibe to it, that cover.
Hey, how about that? I never thought of that. With Guardians being so... it does have a Guardians vibe. You got Don Juan Quixote, the nut job who thought he was a Jedi and somehow acquired a lightsaber. The Starkiller Kid with his droid Effie. And then there's Amazia Foxtrain there in the back. And who else? Oh, that one guy, he was like a porcupine. He could shoot his quills at you. So, yeah, very, very much a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe from
Is that Chewie in the back?
Yeah, that's Chewie.
So he's kind of like Drax.
Yeah. Kind of in this depiction. This is clearly Carmine Infantino art here. Issue number 8 of Star Wars, the classic from 1970.
Well, they're all archetypes, I mean, that's what the Guardians is.
You can see it better now. See, look, Starkiller Kid, Jackson, Don Juan Quixote, Han Solo, Chewie. That guy, his name was like Jaquil or something like that. And then there's
I don't remember.
Amazia, Foxtrain, and Effie the droid. Is that 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's 8. I always wanted action figures of these guys, too. Even Jackson.
Did you ever try to customize?
No, I didn't. But that would be kind of fun. it's possible that it could be. It's possible.
It's possible.
But yeah, the 8 for Aduba 3. That's a good one, man. That's a good Marvel book. Check it out. This stuff is so easy to get now with the Marvel app. You can purchase these old copies digitally for like $2 a piece, or just get the Marvel Unlimited app and you get everything. It's amazing. You can get it all right there on your iPad or on your laptop, however you want to read comics.
Now, I feel like I've thrown you off here, though. Did you fully answer Luca's question about the Clone Wars? Because we went to the Genndy thing.
So you're right. We went to Genndy, and so just because Swank isn't here doesn't mean we're not going to go off on tangents ourselves.
I like tangents.
I think I'm the one mostly responsible for said tangents to happen on the show anyway, so it makes sense that we'll continue that tradition without Swank around. But Luca wants to know what would be the best way. Obviously, we need to see some resolution to the Ahsoka estrangement from the Jedi Order, and we've been giving hints and clues that will happen in some sort of way. We know that they will collaborate. Ahsoka also will have to collaborate with the Mandalorians, with the anti-Death Watch faction that Bo-Katan is a part of. I want to call them like Satine loyalists, maybe. I don't know what to call them, but that's I think Satine called them the true Mandalore. But the Death Watch is still out there, and they've been consolidated by Darth Maul into this criminal syndicate that has representation from all sort of different groups, which obviously is a precursor to the Crimson Dawn that is in existence in the Solo film. But we're not quite there yet. So you need to see some of that. I wanted to see Boba Fett, but I don't think we're going to see Boba Fett in these episodes. I wanted to see Boba Fett reclaim ownership of the Slave One, because the last time we saw the Slave One, it was in the hands of Hondo Ohnaka. So I want to see Boba Fett reclaim that ship. Loose ends like that are the things that I want to see happen in the Clone Wars. But yeah, most importantly would have to be Ahsoka coming to some sort of resolution with the Jedi and how all that went down. What do you think? Do you think Ahsoka might get taken back into the Jedi Order, only then to have to escape Order 66? Or she was just never targeted for Order
I don't think
66
so. I don't
because
think
she left the Order.
I think she'll be much more effective and useful as a character being on the outside of the Order. Bringing her back in the Order kind of undoes what they did with her character, which was having her leave. So and they got to drum up more reasons for her to leave again. It's just, I think there's so much more interesting things to do with her being on the outside. I mean, she's going to have a unique perspective because she knows the Jedi and she knows their inner workings, so she'll have a much more informed opinion on what's going on. I think that could be used in a very cool way.
I believe there could be a situation where the Jedi believe Ahsoka is dead by the time the Clone Wars is coming to an end.
That could be, yeah.
She could be involved in something. She's definitely going to be interacting with Jedi Knights in these episodes, these 12 episodes that are going to be coming out. So, yeah, I think it could be something like that, where, like with that clone trooper Gregor, where they thought he was lost in that big explosion, it could be a similar situation for Ahsoka from the Jedi perspective, and nobody has time to go investigate whether or not she survives because of the rapid pace of the Clone War, and because maybe Palpatine gets kidnapped and they have to address that, and so they don't have time, and they just assume Ahsoka's dead, maybe. I don't know. That's pure speculation. That's not what I want to see necessarily. But along those lines, something that defines where Ahsoka stood with the Order by the time Revenge of the Sith started. And what were Ahsoka's whereabouts at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith? Because that was always a big sticking point with fans when Ahsoka was introduced. Well, Anakin doesn't have a Padawan. He didn't have one in Revenge of the Sith. That's what everyone says. So you have to leave the pieces on the playing on the playing board, on the game board in such a place where it all adds up. And I do want to see this version of the Clone Wars take you right up to the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. That's what I said last week. What about you?
Well, I am mostly interested in I am interested in those things that you mentioned, Ahsoka, certainly. I want to see more of that triangle of Obi-Wan, Anakin, Palpatine, just kind of those dynamics, because I think that that's ultimately the heart of the whole story, is that duplicity of Anakin. I'd like to see that. They can't fully explore it yet.
No.
But I'd like to see that set up.
More of Palpatine sort of extending the net.
Yeah, and illustrating more of Anakin's capacity to end up doing what he did, and establishing more of the friendship with him and Obi-Wan. I find that very interesting, because he is so duplicitous, and I don't believe that came out of nowhere, and I just like to see them explore that a little bit more.
Okay, more of Palpatine extending his influence on the Anakin, and luring Anakin, conditioning Anakin.
Yeah,
a little more of that kind of stuff. Well, that's cool. So that's what we'd like to see. We'll try to ask Swank next week when he returns. And maybe we'll break down that trailer finally, me and Jason. We've been wanting to do that for the last few weeks. So thank you so much, Luca from London. And I want to thank everyone who left us a voicemail. I want you to know that all voicemail this week are from RFR Patreon members. We are only playing voicemail this week from members of the RFR Patreon community. And you can and should join RFR on Patreon for exclusive RFR programming and shows like RFR Rush Hour, RFR Q&A. You get early bird opportunities to listen to new episodes before anyone else. And we have a growing remastered archive of Clone Wars Declassified shows there. So they're all in perfect order and can be listened as you rewatch Clone Wars and get yourself primed for the return of that show on Disney+. Date TBD. We're still kind of, holding out. We don't know when Clone Wars is going to end up on Disney+. And it's off Netflix now, which is a bummer. But, I'll be jumping on board with Disney+ when that launches. And I certainly hope that every episode of The Clone Wars will be available there shortly after it launches. Because, like I said, right now we don't have any streaming access to the episodes, and it would be nice to regain that convenience. So you can rewatch, but hey, in my opinion, the best way to rewatch the Clone Wars is to do it on Blu-ray. That's the highest quality. So rewatch Clone Wars, listen to Clone Wars Declassified only at RFR on Patreon. Plus, we have tons of exclusives. You get access to a private RSS code that delivers RFR audio to your podcast catcher of choice. It only takes $1 to join, and you can customize your membership with several tiers to choose from. Patreon members help keep RFR alive and well. We're very thankful for the support we get from our Patreon community. Billy Mack, you receive all the audio from Patreon. What do you like best about RFR on Patreon?
Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. Yeah,
Rush Hour is my favorite show.
Now, Rush Hour, it's pretty much a monthly show now. But that is a great show where we get to ride shotgun with Jason as he commutes home from downtown Cleveland to his home about an hour away. So he kills time with us, and it's just sort of a anything goes kind of conversation. There's never any real set directive we have. We just talk, and it could be about Star Wars, could be about anything else. That's why we say the show is Star Wars, etc. And that's RFR Rush Hour. I think a lot of people would agree with you. They like RFR Rush Hour a lot too. Plus, we release vintage stuff from the vault, rare audio, and so much more. So that's RFR on Patreon. If you don't believe me, let's hear from RFR patron Peter. Take it away, Pete.
This is Peter Beiser from Media, Pennsylvania. I like being a patron because it's a great way to easily give feedback to Jason and Jimmy about RFR. I head to the comment section when a new episode appears, and it usually drops early for patrons. What did I like? What did I think? The guys are always quick to answer, which makes it totally worth it for me. I'm not a social media type of person, so it's always nice to engage with other like-minded fans here as well. More importantly, if tossing a few bucks into the hat monthly means this show will go on, count me in.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. As everyone knows, new Star Wars trilogy is coming, starting in 2022. Bob Iger did announce there would be a hiatus as far as Star Wars film releases go, and he's staying true to that word. So after Episode 9 wraps up its theatrical release, it'll be about 3 years until we see the next Star Wars film. An all-new, brand-new trilogy. They've left us kind of hanging without any real information. It was just a press release last week that sort of broke it all down, how they were going to restructure the Disney Corporation release schedule going up through the year 2027, with Star Wars and Avatar flip-flopping December months, starting with Avatar first in 2021. So we didn't get really much information, though, in that press release, outside of release dates and confirmation that a new Star Wars trilogy is in the works. So that left a lot of people scratching their heads because, of course, we heard that Benioff and Weiss, the guys from Game of Thrones, they were promised a series of films. That's the wording that was used in the press release when they were first brought on board. And, of course, notoriously, Rian Johnson, it was announced that he was going to have carte blanche to write and direct his own Star Wars trilogy. And that announcement was made in November 2017, before The Last Jedi hit theaters. As we noted here on this show over and over again, how is a hiatus going to take place with two potential trilogies in the works? Now, keep in mind the Benioff and Weiss thing, that was announced as a series of films, not a trilogy necessarily. But with this announcement last week, this press release stating 3 Star Wars films were in the works, you have to assume that this is a trilogy situation here. But that's all we were left to, was assumptions and confusion, because one, we're getting this mixed message from Disney/Lucasfilm as far as how they're going to progress with these films. So I started speculating, well, there's going to be one trilogy produced by Benioff and Weiss and potentially directed by Rian Johnson. But because the paperwork hasn't been cleared on all of this, and the T hasn't been crossed and the I hasn't been dotted, most likely on Rian Johnson's end of things, that they can't make any sort of announcement about who's going to be directing this next trilogy of Star Wars films. So Bob Iger this week makes his first public statements regarding the next Star Wars trilogy. This is information that we've been wanting. It's not much, but he does talk about it. So this is Bob Iger, of course, chairman and CEO of that crazy Disney company. He participated in a Q&A session at the 6th Annual Moffett-Nathanson Media Communications Summit. And, of course, the RFR microphones were there. So let's hear from the man himself, Bob Iger, as he discusses the future of Star Wars with Moffett-Nathanson Media and Communications.
When we finish 9, So we will have done 7, 8, and 9, and then we did Solo and we did Rogue One. So we've done 9 will be the 5th Star Wars movie produced and released since we bought Lucasfilm in 2012. It's our feeling that we've done a good job with those, and I haven't seen 9 finished yet, but I'm confident based on the pieces that I've seen and the script that I read that it's going to be extremely popular, that it would be smart for us to take a bit of a hiatus while we figure out what's next. Now, we're not going to wait until 9 is released and then start figuring out. We're actually hard at work doing that already. And the conclusion that we reached is that 3 years was the proper amount of time to not only take a breather and reset, but to really gear up for the next film's release. Right. And we did a deal with David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, Dan Weiss, who are famous for Game of Thrones, and the next movie that we release will be theirs. And we're not saying anything more about that.
All right. So, confirming the next film is going to be Benioff and Weiss. But that's it. So, no talk about a trilogy. Nothing like that.
Did you sense a little nervousness?
I did. Yeah.
Did you? When he said we thought 3 years would, there was a bit of a little stutter there.
Well, it's not
he's a little unsure about that.
Bob Iger seems like he speaks in a very black and white language a lot of times, and I found it interesting when he said, we've released 5 films in the period, and we think we've done a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's an acknowledgement to the criticism right there. When he says we think, mm-hmm. that's him acknowledging that.
Yeah, there's a lot in there to decode. I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, that's Bob acknowledging the criticisms of Star Wars when he says we think we did a good job. As opposed to, and they've all been great. Everyone knows. Right. Which is something you could potentially say about the last 2 Avengers films, for sure. Those are great films. And I think the Russo brothers or Marvel Studios or Kevin Feige, when he references those films, he will be speaking from an air of confidence.
Yeah, triumph. You can actually, God, you wouldn't think, and I think you're right about that. And you wouldn't think that somebody of such a high position as Bob Iger would feel a little nervous, but you can tell, when he talks about the 5 films and then he goes in this introducing a new strategy going forward, and you can sense there's some uncertainty there about
You're
that.
right. Let's hear it again.
The conclusion that we reached is that 3 years was the proper amount of time.
Right there. You hear all the hesitation right there?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
But 3 years was the proper amount of time to not only take a...
Right. You hear that? I think that he knows it's just an area of uncertainty.
Now, like I said, the RFR microphones were there, okay? So all we have is the audio to base this off of. To jump to... You don't know what they were doing when they were talking. They might have been getting back...
No, I have no idea.
They could have been getting
what my impression is.
They could have been getting back massages, right? And right at that moment, they were working on a knot for him, and he was just like, you can hear him working the knot is like a. Yeah, right. We're just assuming things.
Yeah, I'm picking up on that. That's what I'm hearing. I could be wrong. Absolutely. But it is, they've got to be concerned and thinking about that. It is a different approach, a new strategy. I'm not saying that he's writing the series off or anything about that, but I think he knows that fans are listening very intently and judging him for this. And it's, you don't make these decisions lightly when you got Star Wars at your fingertips.
That's right. That's what we've been saying. Yeah. So notable that, yes, it is true. Rian Johnson's name was not brought up. But he was clear there that he said, that's all we're going to talk about right now. That's it. You know why that's it? Because Johnson's still in the mix. They just haven't reached an agreement with him yet. They're trying to hammer this all out.
Although now, are these Game of Thrones guys, are they directors?
They're not directors.
And they don't direct their show.
They've directed 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. The 2 episodes in earlier seasons, and the series finale, which debuts this Sunday, is directed by Benioff and Weiss. So I think people are going to be watching that episode very closely. But, Benioff and Weiss, they've done other things outside of Game of Thrones.
Well, I just ask because, do you agree, unless Rian Johnson is directing, he's not going to be involved?
Well, if this is a trilogy, then he's not going to be involved in that aspect, at least for the first film. They could be boiling things down. Maybe Benioff and Weiss aren't getting a series of films. Maybe they're getting 1 film. Show us what you can do. So they're probably under this directive to whatever movie they put out there. They might be under this directive to make sure that movie has a beginning, a middle, and an end, with potential for sequels.
As the creative element, but you're talking directing too? Or would they have a different director? What do you think?
I think the possibility is great that they'll have a different director outside of the Benioff and Weiss duo. Yeah, definitely. I think that's very strong because Benioff and Weiss are primarily known as writer-producers, okay? David Benioff has 2 directing credits to his name. The 3 episodes of Game of Thrones that I mentioned that he co-directed, and something called When the Nines Roll Over, a short from 2006, which is something he probably entered into like various film competitions and film festivals and whatnot. And so the other guy is D.B. Weiss, writer of Game of Thrones, also producer and director. But his directorial credits are even less than that of his counterpart, David Benioff, who at least directed that short. The only thing that D.B. Weiss has ever directed are these 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. So, they have no theatrical experience as directors. I think Game of Thrones would have them pretty well prepared because those seem like mini movies, each and every episode. But film production's a much bigger thing. I really don't know if those are the guys who are going to be directing the next film. He said it's their film specifically, but that doesn't mean they're directing it. I think that Rian Johnson could definitely be in the mix if this is a trilogy. If not, I think this is just a tryout for Benioff and Weiss. Let's see what you can do. If you can give us a story that warrants a trilogy situation, or warrants multiple films to tell a single story, then you have to prove it in the first movie.
Yeah,
that's how I think they're going to look at it because that's the way filmmaking traditionally has always been.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like
you're only as good as your last movie.
Lucas would never signed up to do anything more than a single film. He's the one who always thought about the potential of doing sequels. He wanted to do more than 1 movie, but he knew that Star Wars had massive potential to fail. And if that happened, he still wanted to be able to do his sequel. But so he commissioned Alan Dean Foster to write something that could potentially be a TV movie. And that's how Splinter of the Mind's Eye was born. That was never intended to be a major motion picture follow-up to Star Wars, but if push came to shove, it would be adapted into a television screenplay for a movie of the week or whatever. Lucas would desperately try to keep Star Wars alive. He didn't need to go down that path, obviously. Everyone knew there was going to be another Star Wars film after opening weekend back in May 1977. It was a done deal. But you had to prove yourself. You had to create something that would endure and draw box office. And, critical acclaim, that's always something that's more,
esoteric.
Yeah. But to get that box office, commercial appeal, and enduring story and characters, that's what Star Wars succeeded in doing. But it's not automatic. And a lot of these franchises treat it like it's supposed to be automatic. Notice we didn't have a Godzilla 2 after the Gareth Edwards Godzilla.
Well, there's a Godzilla movie coming up.
There's
soon.
always a Godzilla movie coming up.
That's
but
not
I
a
think
sequel.
They were trying.
That's not a sequel. I saw the trailer for that the other night.
They were trying to establish a specific franchise. I'm talking specifically about the Gareth Edwards Godzilla that was critically panned. It didn't get the box office it was expected to get, and people just simply didn't like it. Now, if you liked it out there in listener land, I'm not going to shame you for liking that film. I thought there were things about that movie that were cool to see. I loved watching the Hilton Hawaiian Village on Waikiki Beach in Honolulu get trashed by Godzilla.
Yep.
That was fun. My parents took us there when we were kids, and they still go there now. So I tell them, look out for Godzilla. Godzilla scares the crap out of these old folks. But that movie was created to establish a Godzilla franchise in the States, a high-budget film series. And it didn't warrant that kind of, like, I'm thinking along the lines of Transformers, you know?
Right.
But that Godzilla didn't work. So, neither did the one in 1998. And yeah, there's another one on the right. There's always a Godzilla movie that's going to be happening. You don't have to worry about that. But to establish an ongoing franchise with the same actors, the same crew, the same directors, and all of that, that's what I think the goal was for that Godzilla, the Gareth Edwards one.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, like, what the structure of these new movies are from, like, who's in charge point of view. Because you've got Kathleen Kennedy, obviously, overseeing it all. I mean, she's got a lot of pull. You've got these Game of Thrones guys. And if they're not directors, and let's just say theoretically they throw Ryan Johnson into the mix, who's a creative guy on his own, I mean, who is that? That just, I don't know. That seems like an unusual.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Too many cooks
yes.
spoiling the broth there? Or does that happen more than I think it does?
It could be. It could be, or it could be an incredible collaboration. You just don't know.
Yeah.
I think in this day and age, I think Ryan was promised one thing, a trilogy that he can write and direct. And I think he planted seeds in The Last Jedi that would eventually come to fruition in the trilogy. But Ryan's known for a while that his trilogy has been put on the back burner. That's why he accepted the Knives Out gig. Knives Out, which is his next film that comes out this November. Why did he accept that gig? Ryan signed on to that gig in summer 2018. About 9 months after it was announced that he is going to be helming the next Star Wars trilogy. Why would he accept the Knives Out gig then? It's because he was told, hey, you know that trilogy we made that announcement about? Remember that? Remember that, Ryan? Yeah. I've been. Me and Ron Bergman have been busting our skulls working on this thing. I can't wait to jump in on it. I'm drinking coffee all the time. I'm going nuts. Bob Iger said we can't do it. So we're fighting for you, pal. But we don't know what we're going to do.
We're going in a different direction.
But Bob said we can do it. But we're going to still try. We're going to push it through for you. We really want you to work on Star Wars. So it could be possible that Ryan, via his goodwill, will slide into maybe a streaming series. Maybe the stuff he had been developing for the next trilogy could be adapted into a streaming series. Or maybe the Benioff and Weiss film will not go over well, and then they'll call Ryan in and say, all right, you're up next. You got next.
Yeah.
I could imagine they feel that way because it's been a tightrope act with almost all of their directors, except for J.J. Abrams, because he's J.J. Abrams. Everyone else has presented controversy, has gotten fired, has gotten replaced, secretly replaced. There's just been, or very publicly fired, I think they should stick maybe more with a Ron Howard type, or get guys who really have a lot of experience in that realm of huge, big budget films based on franchises, like the Russo brothers. I think the Russo brothers would be prime candidates Consider them for a Star Wars film. And stop trying to create series and trilogies and stuff. And just put the films out there and see if they have the legs to provide that potential for an ongoing story that will spread over multiple films. Prove yourself. George Lucas had to. So I'd like to see these new filmmakers prove themselves before they get granted these trilogies with no restrictions at all. Whatever you want to fart out your ass, we'll make into a Star Wars film. No, that's not how to do it. That is not how to do it. So Iger is pulled on the reins a little. Or as Jason says, Iger's the dad who finally opened the basement door and flipped the lights on to see what the kids downstairs were doing. And when he saw, he lost his crap. I think there is a lot of... people are all writing Rian Johnson off. I think that's unfair. I think he's still in the mix. I think we will be getting more Star Wars from Rian Johnson if he is not put off by the fact that it was very publicly announced that he would be getting a trilogy, and now he's not going to get that trilogy. Because it's clear he's not getting that trilogy. That press release from November 2017 announcing Rian Johnson's going to be directing and writing his own Star Wars trilogy with Ron Bergman producing, you can just throw that away. That's non-canon. That press release is non-canon at this point. Also, the press release about Benioff and Weiss being granted a series of films. That's non-canon. They're getting one film. And if that fails, then... but they announced 3 films. See, I hate this. I hate that they announce films when they have no film. You know, they announce release dates for films when they don't have a film. They've been doing this constantly ever since George signed those papers in 2012. They have been announcing films when they don't have films. They don't have ideas. They don't have scripts. They own the property. That's what they have. But they just think it's all going to put itself together.
It's all done to make you look ridiculous.
And I'm not a man in my position.
Can't afford to look ridiculous.
All right. So, Billy Mack, would you like to jump on board with speculation about maybe what era in the timeline the Benioff and Weiss films are going to be a part of? I mean, do you have any guesses?
No, I don't, because it seems completely wide open. This seems to me like a blank slate. It seems like there's a very large group of fans that want to see them go to the old Republic.
Yes.
That doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, I don't mean to knock on anybody who's into that. I don't know anything about it. It's a completely different world and era as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see them stick a little closer to home. I mean, that's just my general attitude about it, but I can't imagine what era. I really just feel like it's totally up for grabs, and I have nothing to really inform a guess. I can only tell you what I would like to see.
Okay, well, tell me that.
I would like to see something that follows this trilogy, I think.
Oh.
Because I think that this trilogy will probably leave them in a position where building a story will make a lot of sense. I think we'll probably see the end of the First Order in some way. So, I don't know. That just seems like that's going to leave them like the original trilogy with a lot of fertile ground. So,
and how would you incorporate then the characters from this current trilogy? I'm talking about Finn, Rey, and Poe, and Rose, and all of them. I mean, how would they move into then the future with these, or would they?
At this point, I don't foresee them moving forward. I mean, like what is like the main characters, or they show up later in the story?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. I'm not picturing that right now. I'm seeing new characters. It seems like that's what they want to do, is start with new characters.
clean cut. I think so.
Yeah.
So it probably does make more sense for this to be beyond episode 9. Stories told in the universe post the First Order.
Yeah.
And maybe, come up with a legitimate antagonist that is unique and new and fresh.
Yeah.
As opposed to an Empire retread.
Maybe there'll be some kind of structure, some kind of rules established at the end of this trilogy. I bet you there will be. I mean, all this speculation about, Skywalker as an idea replacing Jedi. A trilogy that follows this one could take place, 100 years in the future and be very much informed by the stories that we know in terms of, the rules they establish. Maybe there'll be some kind of structure, governmental, spiritual, that will be allowed to evolve into another series.
That's what you foresee them doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just seems like they're
makes
kind of
sense.
start anew. Mm-hmm.
I think so too, and I think there's fertile ground for that in the films. But I think in the streaming series is where you can go back and address characters and situations and flesh them out a little bit further, like they're going to be doing with the Mandalorian. They're going to be doing it with the Cassian Andor streaming series. And let's hear what Iger had to say in this summit earlier this week about the future of Star Wars on Disney+.
We are producing 2 live-action Star Wars series for Disney+. One of them is called The Mandalorian, which is being supervised by Jon Favreau, and the other one is a bit of a prequel to Rogue One. And my guess is there probably will be at least one more live-action series that we produce for Disney+, meaning a Star Wars series, before we release the next film. So we're not necessarily doing nothing.
Right.
I believe that these TV series will be extremely popular for Star Wars fans and very, very valuable for Disney Plus while we gear up for the next set of films. So that's Star Wars. And we haven't said anything more beyond what we've announced is the next film. Okay. And we haven't given much detail about that.
That is true. We were just talking about that, Bob. You haven't.
Mum's the word.
So he says there's most likely going to be a 3rd streaming series made available prior to the release of the next film, the next Star Wars film. So in the downtime between Episode 9 and the next film, the Benioff and Weiss film, you're going to get 3 streaming series there, 3 seasons of a streaming series, or 3, probably more seasons than that, for crying out loud. If The Mandalorian is going to continue to a season 2, which we've heard rumored, I don't think that's been officially given the green light, but we've definitely heard rumor that most likely is what's going to happen. There's the Cassian Andor Rogue One prequel series, which will also feature K2, and that one I think is going to be really great. I rewatched Rogue One on May the 4th. On Saturday, May the 4th, they were streaming Star Wars films all day long broadcasting them on TNT. And so I was watching a lot of Star Wars and caught Rogue One pretty much in its entirety. And what a great film that is. It just really captures the vibe of the original trilogy, specifically A New Hope. It does a great job of capturing that vibe. So I'm looking forward to the Cassian Andor show. I've heard a lot of people say, well, why are they doing Andor? Nobody's asked for that. Yeah, but you know what? You might be not asking for it, but you don't recognize how much you need that one. Rogue One is a great, great film. And that's because they're not trying to reinvent the wheel in that film. And that's why I think it goes over so well. Great characters, too. But I'm thinking, and I've been speculating for a long time, that the Kenobi standalone film that was strongly rumored this time a year ago, or 2 years ago even, going back, that was in the works, a standalone Kenobi film. I think that's going to be adapted into a series, and they are going to get Ewan McGregor on board for it. I think he's already on board for it. I think it's just a matter of time before we get that announcement about the Kenobi streaming series.
People are clamoring for Kenobi. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I would bet you it's probably a year and a half until you get Ewan McGregor with a schedule that allows for him to actually do this.
That's perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Could definitely happen. I could see that. A little, 8-10 episode deal,
Any other Star Wars streaming series you'd like to see? I mean, everything has been rumored to be in development at this point, and everything probably is in development in some way, shape, or form at this point. But what Star Wars streaming series would you like to see?
Tag and Bink.
Okay.
Do a little Star Wars Tales skit style.
Okay. It could be like a sketch comedy show.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe something back to the prequel era, just to kind of fill everything out. That would give you a little taste of every era, pretty much.
What about the series that George Lucas and Rick McCallum were developing?
Oh, he had 70 episodes ready to go, right?
Well, 50. I think it was 50 on the shelf that they had fleshed out story treatments for 50.
He never said what that was supposed to be about, right?
Rick McCallum indicated it was going to be about the underworld of Coruscant, and the working title for it was Star Wars Underworld. It was to be developed and produced alongside the video game Star Wars 1313, which featured a lot of activity that was happening in the lower levels of Coruscant. And potentially, I believe that's where Ahsoka Tano will find herself, according to what Dave Filoni
That was supposed to debut after Detours. This is all like an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Alternate universe of Star Wars entertainment that never was.
Yeah, George had said that he had suspended pre-production on his live-action series. So we were looking at the potential of Clone Wars winding down and nothing else on the horizon except Star Wars Detours. And that was a sure thing. That was greenlit. That was locked and loaded. And there are many complete episodes of that on the shelf. So Seth Green said, yeah, there's nothing's ever happened like this in the history of everything, where you put so much work and complete so much of your work only to see it sit there and rot.
I think it's timeless, which is the lucky thing. Like we created a show that's very funny and it fits into the Star Wars universe, but separate from canon. So, I think it'll still work. It's just people won't see it for a while.
How weird to have 40 episodes of something just sitting around.
I know. It's
really bizarre.
It is a little strange. I don't think there's anything like that in the history of anything.
I predict we'll see that summer 2020 on the Disney Plus streaming service. Once they get this Skywalker saga wrapped up, then they feel comfortable enough unleashing Detours on us fans. So that's what's happening with Bob Iger, getting us up to speed with his first public statements regarding the next Star Wars. I opened this story saying the next Star Wars trilogy, but as I listened closer to what Bob actually said, he's not confirming any sort of trilogy. He's really only saying one film is in the works, but we've attached release dates to 2 other films. We don't know what the hell we're doing. It has to be a trilogy. Come on. It has to be. They just don't want to commit.
Yeah, 3 unrelated movies would seem like they... Yeah.
Because you can't wait with that 2-year window.
Well, where's the anticipation? I mean, they got to know that just from a business sense. You got to have movies that are, if you're gonna stagger releases like that, you got to give the people wanting more from a story, right? Going into the next one, you can't have 3 unrelated stories, just standalone movies. It's got to be a trilogy.
It has to be. You're right about that. It really has to be. They're not just going to be farting off these one-off stories.
Yeah, and they've already tried that. So
right. So that's where I think it's happening. It's 3 films. It's a trilogy. It's all intertwined. Benioff and Weiss, they're the production team and the writing team behind it. But who's going to direct? Who is going to direct? Is it going to be Rian Johnson? Is it going to be Ron Howard? Is it going to be George Lucas? Well, that'd be a twist. Yeah, sure, I'll come out of retirement. So Benioff and Weiss, I visited them on the Game of Thrones set. Really good guys, and it's got fire-breathing dragons. It's cool. So, Lucas, no. The potential of him in his mid-70s coming out of retirement to direct Star Wars films, I think is...
Although, hey, look at Clint Eastwood, man. He's like almost 90. He puts out a movie every year.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy, this is Brian from Chicago. Just want to say first, it was great meeting you guys and hanging out with you at Celebration. Jimmy, you two at Galloping Ghost and afterwards, and then at both the after parties and then also at Celebration. But what I'm calling for is asking how you guys are dealing with the post-celebration. I wouldn't call it blues, but I would call it that I'm just still amped up from it. Like you guys said on Rush Hour, it not that it was ever gone, but it reinvigorated my need for Star Wars content. And it, I'm looking more forward to everything, Mandalorian and Resistance coming back. I know how you guys feel about that, but it's just everything, from the movies and then finding out today, that what the new release schedule is. But if you guys are doing anything different to quench this, or is it just business as usual? Because I know Star Wars is every day and Star Wars is number one, but I'm just wondering if you guys are still feeling the after celebration high. So keep up the great work, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brian. I know Brian. Brian's awesome. He helped me out so much when we did our Live from the South Side event. He helped work the door. He was the doorman.
Oh.
He did an awesome job. He said, "What is there anything I can do to help you guys?" And because he was part of our crew, like we said, we sort of put our crew together for the entire week at Galloping Ghost Arcade on Ogden the night before load-in day for Star Wars Celebration. So on the 9th, we hung out at Galloping Ghost, and that's sort of when the crew all came together. And Brian was definitely part of that crew, and I had a great time hanging out with him. And he's a local guy and awesome to hang with. But he's asking how we're dealing with post-celebration blues. He said he wouldn't call it the blues, and I wouldn't either, because I felt it was a really invigorating experience the whole week. I had a great time. A lot has been said about Star Wars fans, and these guys are toxic, those guys are toxic, and, a lot of crap is flying around. So I was a little concerned about the gathering of the tribes and how that would all go down, but everyone just wanted to have the most fulfilling experience for their Star Wars fandom, and I think I've not heard any reports about anything going down at Star Wars Celebration. To me, it was the exact opposite. It really had a fantastic vibe. Being here in Chicago was unbelievable. It was so great. And it did. It reinvigorated my need for Star Wars content. I am looking forward to The Mandalorian. And Resistance is fine, but, I mean, it's not, top-tier stuff. I think The Mandalorian will be. And I'm looking forward to Episode 9 a great deal. It really got me pumped up, and it really made me feel good. The whole 5 days was just a feel good. And I wasn't sure going into it. I had told friends, if this event wasn't in Chicago, I might be sitting out Celebration this time. Just because of the way that the fans have been acting and just everything. Everything. But, it was... Those anxieties were quickly swept aside once we hit that convention floor and started hanging out with friends and other fans. And it was just awesome. And so, like Brian, I'm missing it. it has really pumped me up on a Star Wars level. I've been spending more time with my collection. I've been spending more time working on Rebel Force Radio. I've been spending more time watching Star Wars content, taking in content, audio books. The StarWars.com live stream from Star Wars Celebration is a great way to dip your toe back into that experience and sort of relive the feel goods from that week. And that's what I'm all about right now. I feel pretty damn comfortable with my fandom, my spot in fandom, and my overall passion for Star Wars remains as strong as it ever has. So the event like Star Wars Celebration Chicago did nothing but reinforce all of that. Big time. Big time. What about you, Bill? You talked a little bit about the event earlier in the show and how you sort of approached it maybe from a different perspective or different angle this time around, where you felt like, I think you felt like you had more freedom and flexibility with this show than you've ever experienced before.
In a sense, it wasn't as structured. I think in the past, I mean, there have been celebrations where I've had everything scheduled out. Yeah, like I'm going to hit these panels, I'm going to do this, and it was all kind of structured to avoid the lines and get maximum coverage of the experience at the show. And I would just say that my experience has shifted more towards the people that I'm with and stuff more. I still like going to the other things, the panels and stuff like that, but it's not as much of a focus. But to answer your question about how I'm dealing with the post blues, is that what we're talking about? The post convention blues. I just have been kind of following my bliss, as they say. I think Joseph Campbell used to say that.
That's right.
Just spending time with my collection and the things I enjoy, and I bought some things that I'm sitting down and restoring, old vintage toys.
Yes,
spent some time doing that. But like I have a kind of a routine where I sit at a table and I'll put on some like a YouTube video of the panel that I didn't see, and I'll sit and work on my restoration project and listen, or I'll put on one of the DVDs with the commentary, and I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
My one purchase that I didn't buy too much stuff there, but I did get a Gentle Giant jumbo vintage figure of Luke Hoth.
Yes.
I don't have any of those, and I really just wanted one, and that was a figure that I always loved when those first few waves of Empire figures came out in 1980 or whenever it was. So I did drop down on the Gentle Giant Hoth Luke. So,
and if you want to see that very moment, check out our video, Star Wars Celebration show floor video highlights. You can find it on the RFR YouTube channel, or you can find it on rebelforceradio.com in our news section. And that's a video that I shot on the show floor, and it features all kind of things, cosplayers, tattoos, what have you. And that's where I was there that moment. Bill coughed up the big bucks to purchase the Gentle Giant Luke Skywalker big action figure. And he has it on display in his collection. He just handed me this picture right now. It looks pretty good. It's all Empire. It's all vintage. You have the tall Luke with the regular size Luke right next to him. That provides quite the perspective. Then you have the Burger King Empire Strikes Back glasses, along with a vintage Wampa. And then the Battle of Hoth Kenner playset, which you restored? Yeah. With some Kenner action figures, Hoth Rebel Trooper, AT-AT Driver, Snow Trooper, Rebel Commander, vintage Han Hoth, and vintage Leia Hoth. And there they all are, proudly displayed in Billy Mac's collection. Can we share this this photo, or no?
Yeah,
Or you're private.
We can
about
share that. Yeah, you want to put that on?
I'll put it on Facebook.
On Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I enjoyed doing that, and I take pleasure in some of the little things. Sometimes I bought a Return of the Jedi era Starlog magazine there. You know, and so
That's
I
good stuff, yeah.
Goof around with my collection at night and read a little Starlog before bedtime. So that's how I deal with the post.
Fully immersed. Fully immersive Star Wars celebration experience with Billy Mack. So that's probably the best way to keep it going is just maintain your passion and fandom all the time. It's always there with you. And then hit me up next time you want to go to Galloping Ghost, and we'll hang, and then we'll go to Brixie's, and we'll have many beers and talk about Star Wars. So, because that's kind of what I do. So that's a message for anyone listening, but specifically for Brian. He knows what I'm saying.
Hey, Jimmy Mack and Billy Mack. Really excited to hear you guys talking on the show this week. I'm interested in hearing some more discussion about Episode 9, speculation on what might happen and speculation on the things that we saw in the teaser trailer. I have my own kind of personal ideas about it that haven't been discussed too much. The big one, obviously, is Palpatine and how he's going to come back. I like Paul Bateman's idea about the cloning. I think that would be cool, but I'm not sure they'll go there just because it kind of opens it up for anybody to come back at any time, which might kind of undermine the story a little bit. I think, especially with the Clone Wars and with Rebels as well, we see that Palpatine is really able to tap into some really strange dark side magic. I'm thinking in particular of in the Lost episodes, which I guess we can't call Season 6 anymore. He and Dooku do this sort of like ritual over a basin, and they're able to intervene in Yoda's spiritual journey. So that was kind of interesting and strange. And then in Rebels, that we haven't really talked about it that much, but when Ezra goes to the other side with the portals, I mean, how is Palpatine able to interact with the portals and send, his energy out and, attacking Ezra? And so obviously he's got some kind of connection to these portals, and so maybe that could be a way that, he's able to go into the future somehow and interact with Kylo Ren and with Rey, et cetera. So, just interested to hear what you guys think about that kind of stuff. Also, the planet at the beginning, the desert planet, I wonder what you guys think about it being Jedha. I know that that's not a popular idea, and I think even in the Marvel comics, they might have shown that Jedha was kind of splitting apart into two pieces, so it might not even be a whole planet anymore. But I think it would be cool to go to Jedha and to see those mountains again that were shaped like Jedi. Anyway, I'm going long, so may the Force be with you. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling and laying down some of your thoughts about what could happen in Episode 9. The Palpatine return is definitely one that is a head-scratcher, and we can start connecting the dots with other media like animation, specifically Star Wars Rebels. But how do you explain that to the film audience? Well, you might have a way, but I don't think we're going to be seeing the portals per se, or that weird, in between that the portals took Ezra into. I don't think we're going to be hearing the name Ezra uttered by any character in Episode 9. I'm hard pressed to believe that anything, any concept, any idea, or anything from Star Wars Rebels will cross over into Episode 9, despite the fact that it is recently released material that expands the Star Wars mythology. It's too hard to incorporate that into a film that is supposed to be tying up the previous 9 films. Once you start throwing animated series into the works, then it's just further complicating things. But I did hear rumor about a Rey. This is a spoiler alert. Potential spoiler alert. If you're one of those people who don't want to know any information about Episode 9, I'm going to keep this as brief as possible. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I heard that during the duel, the big, huge, epic showdown climax of the film that's going to feature Rey and Kylo dueling it out, that somehow they get transported to various environments that have significance on the saga on a whole. You could only guess what some of those environments would be. The first one that I thought of was Mustafar. I thought of Cloud City, because remember, Rey was walking down the Cloud City corridor when she was having her force back. And everyone calls that a force back, and I've never liked that. You can listen to shows recorded around the time of the release of The Force Awakens and shortly thereafter, where I said I didn't think that she was experiencing flashbacks per se. I felt like she was seeing the future in that montage of visions that she was having. I predicted she was seeing the future in some of those visions. So to call it a force back never really sat well with me. But, we'll see. However, in that force back, she is having that vision where she's walking down the Cloud City corridors. And we also know that that vision was edited to remove her having a vision of Luke and Vader having a saber duel. We even saw a behind-the-scenes photo of the actor who was hired to portray Luke. He looked like he had kind of a beer belly, too, which I had scratching my head. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, though, is the things that could tie into Episode 9. And specifically this duel between Rey and Kylo that is supposed to transport them through these various environments that have significance on the saga. I mean, crap, they could be dueling on in the Dark Side Cave on Dagobah, for all we know. They could be dueling on the Death Star. All kind of different flashbacks you can have. So that's just something I heard. Bill, what do you think about that? Did you hear that rumor? Are you aware of that one?
I have not.
So
it's interesting.
But, I mean, that makes me think of those portals.
But does that also tie into his question about the desert planet? Is that
okay, all right. Well, let's talk about that.
Is that...
A lot of people have speculated that that's Rey going through a training session with Kylo Ren assisting her.
What the heck would you call it? Transporting to other worlds? Is there a word for that?
Like while they're dueling, that they'll just suddenly, all of a sudden, they're surrounded by.
Well, if that rumor's true, that could be part of it. That could be one of the significant worlds that they get transported.
All right. So when I look at the Rise of the Jedi, or the Rise of the Jedi, the Rise of Skywalker, and am I the only person who wants to call it Rise of the Skywalker, or is that just like a Chicago, Illinois thing? Yeah, Rise of the Skywalker over there. Over there. You see the Skywalker over there? It's the Rise of the Skywalker. What do you want? But so,
hey, you got the Skywalker, the Greedo, what have you.
Greedo. I don't think we're going to be seeing Greedo in Episode 9.
You got the Hammerhead.
I think Greedo's story was wrapped up in Episode 4. I think there's no more story there to tell. I think George Lucas said himself, there's really not much story there to tell anymore about, what's his name? Greedo. I called him Martian.
The Greedos.
There's Greedo. Yeah, I know Greedo. When I look at that trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, I picture more of a training session going on there than an actual duel. And there is no confirmation that actually is Kylo Ren piloting that TIE fighter. We're just jumping to that conclusion because it kind of looks like his TIE silencer from Ep 8, and we see the gloved hands. But still, I mean, I think it could be. Yeah, I think it's Kylo.
Would make sense, but it could be purposely misleading. Remember Last Jedi, the trailer they had. There was a thing in there where it appeared that Rey and Kylo were in the same place, and it was like two different scenes. Mm-hmm. Remember, and it made it look like he was reaching, like they were about ready to embrace or hold hands or something. Remember that?
No, that was
that accurate, or
yeah,
did
that
they
was
manipulate?
accurate. That was the scene after.
Why am I thinking
after they defeated Snoke and the Praetorian Guards? Kylo held his hand out to Rey.
Oh, okay. That was
that was part of it. That was consistent with the film. That was not misleading at all. I think our speculation was like, oh, they're misleading us. They're putting two things together. But it's just like how we're doing it with the Rise of Skywalker. Where I'm going to say, oh, that's a training sequence. That might not be Kylo flying that thing. And I think what we see is the first instinct we have when we see these images. I think they like 80%, 90% is consistent with what we see in the film. Unless you're talking about a situation like The Force Awakens and Rogue One, where they were sticking all this crap into the trailer that had no business being in the trailer because it was nowhere to be found in the final film. That was frustrating. I'm glad that I hope those days are behind us. I think that speaks volumes of the lack of direction that the franchise.
Yeah, and it just feels very manipulative.
Well, yeah, when you release it, but it was a total, Rogue One, that went through a lot of 11th hour changes, a considerable amount. Gareth, and you can't blame Gareth. I think Gareth Edwards is a very talented filmmaker. I really do. And I think he was given the marching orders to make a Star Wars war film. Think Band of Brothers. Think Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah. That was specifically cited.
Black Hawk Down. Think of those movies.
Yeah.
And so Gareth went out and he did, he came back, and it was bloody. It was violent. It lacked the spirituality. The characters were not as likable, and there was a lack of cohesiveness with the overall saga. So what Gareth came back with was he was told to go make a gritty, harsh Star Wars war film, and Gareth returned with a gritty, harsh war film. And they're like, hey, there's no Star Wars in here. What happened? And he's like, oh, well, I thought, I think it was just a lot of misdirection, miscommunication.
Well, I remember the panel at Celebration Anaheim, and they specifically cited those films like Black Hawk Down and Saving Private Ryan as inspirations for the vibe that they were going for with Rogue One. And it's kind of ironic because to me there's more of a vibe of that in the Solo war scenes than there is in the entirety of Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
especially the
all that muddy, that trench battle stuff
on Minbam.
Yeah, that first fifth of the movie or whatever it is. So, but the Emperor thing, I'll tell you, I did not think they were bringing the Emperor back. That was a big surprise for me, and I don't know how in the heck they're going to do it. So I'm terrible at this kind of speculation. I don't even. I can't even wrap my mind around it coming out.
Terrible at this.
I am because it's so. I mean, what do we have? A laugh, I tend to be a lot more factual, and I keep having this vision of like them going into that piece of the Death Star and seeing Palpatine like sitting in a hot tub in there with a tropical drink.
Well, listen, if they can turn Thor into the Big Lebowski.
Oh, right.
Then they could turn Palpatine into Hot Tub Time Machine or whatever your suggestion is. All right, listen, let's get to one more. Okay? One more. Oh, I just had one. Okay, yeah, let's do one more. This is Joe. Either his name is Joe Dallas or he's Joe from Dallas.
Hey, Jimmy Mack and Billy. How you doing, man? It's Joe Dallas, and I was at both events at Celebration, had a great time. Wanted to come up and meet you and say hi. It was just you were mobbed and a lot of stuff happening. So one of these days I'm going to say hi. I'm a big fan. Been listening to the show for a long time. Been to most of your latest live things, and been listening for 5 years. Been a Patreon member for at least as long as you've been doing it, I think. And just wanted to say it's a great show and love listening, and it's a great community to be a part of, and really looking forward to the next movie. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
Oh, that was nice. Joe just checking in to say he likes what's happening around here. And I like what's happening around here thanks to guys like Joe Dallas.
And don't give up, Joe. You will meet us.
We were mobbed. It makes it sound like it's Beatlemania or something. We're really not mobbed. It's just like we talk too much when people come to talk to us, I think. And
Yeah.
It's just, it's like people are just standing there waiting to just say hi, and we're just like, talking in the air or whatever, and just. But
Yeah, after
I
5 or 10 minutes,
Joe.
people are like, okay, we're
really.
good.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
They're like, no, stay. Come here. Let me finish my point.
Please. Yeah.
No.
Oh, Bill, you speaketh the truth. Thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone who called in this week. Thank you so much, our Patreon audience. You guys are the best, and you guys did an awesome job filling up the RFR voicemail hotline this week. Next time we take voicemail, we're going to open it up to everyone, so don't feel frustrated if your voice isn't being heard, but the best way to cure those blues is to join us, RFR, on Patreon. It only takes $1 to join, like I said. And there are many tiers to choose from. And I think if you jump on board, you'll have a good time with us, just like Joe Dallas does. Thanks, Joe.
All right, say goodbye to this wretched hive of scum and villainy, and hello to Cloud City.